Oh, Tim's here.
Gotcha.
Glad you could make it back, Tim.
Triple duty.
All right. Get organized here. Appreciate everybody being here again today. Despite mixed results, I thought it was a solid weekend for our volleyball team as far as the level of play that I saw. You always want to win on senior night. It's really important that your team plays well on that particular night so you can send a great group of people out with a win, and we did that against Michigan. I've said all year long, I think Michigan is loaded with talent and very, very dangerous, and to be able to sweep them this year was, I thought, a real positive thing for our team. And we played pretty well throughout that entire match and won some tough sets against them. And then 2 days later, we're in Lincoln, Nebraska, playing a top 5 ranked team. It's always fun to go up there because the fans in Lincoln know their volleyball and they love volleyball, and they treat teams that come up there with incredible respect that you don't get really anywhere else that we travel to. So we always like going up there, and they had, of course, another 8,200 at the Devaney Center. And really for about a set and 3/4, we played really well. We actually outplayed Nebraska. I think John called a timeout about halfway through the first set, or through the second set. And at that point in time, we were out hitting Nebraska, we were out blocking Nebraska, we were out digging Nebraska, and we were out serving Nebraska. But that was the last hurrah at that point. And they kind of took over, and good serving by them. Maddie Kubik was a real force for them that we really handled okay. In both those matches, we held our opponent to under 200 hitting percentage, which is pretty good against two of the better offensive teams in the Big Ten. Our problem was against Nebraska. Our hitting percentage after that midway part of the second set took a real nosedive. And so we've evaluated that, and we were out of system too often. As many of you may know, we made a setting change. Meg Renner was injured in a play in the first set at the 18-point mark. I think we were ahead 18-15 or 18-16, and she got hurt, had to come out of the game for the rest of the match. And I thought that Grace Balanciefer did an admirable job, and where we thought she might be an issue or a liability with her blocking, she was not. She did a great job of containing the left side hitters whenever she was at the net, and her backcourt play was also really good. So despite having your starting setter out of the match, I thought Grace came in and did a really, really good job. So I feel good about where we are despite the loss at Nebraska, and not sure at this point in time what will happen with Meg. We don't have any information yet to share. But we have 2 big matches this weekend. You want to have some momentum going into the NCAA Tournament, and we play Maryland at their place on Wednesday. We'll have Thanksgiving in Happy Valley, and then play Penn State on Friday. Those are 2 teams that did beat us here at home. Some were surprised that Maryland came in here and beat us in Holloway Gym, but they were really good on that night, like they were really good last Friday against Ohio State when they beat the number 2 ranked team in the country. So they're capable of playing very, very well, and we'll expect their best on Wednesday. And then we play Penn State again, who also beat us here, and I think that will be another really, really good match. But again, we just want to play well, keep getting better, and try to build some momentum, whether that's with wins or just with our level of play as we head into the tournament. The NCAA draw is on Sunday at 7:30, and we will have opportunity for our fans to come out to in Mackey Arena at the Spurgeon Club to watch that. Our players will be here, and we look forward to hoping that that number one, that we're in the tournament, which we think that we are, but we've been wrong before, and then hopefully get a draw and find out where we're going to going to go. I don't see any way we're hosting at this point. It's going to be a really tough. RPI right now is 24, and they look very closely at what your RPI is in the sport of volleyball with the committee. So I think it'd be a big jump to think that we'll be doing anything but going on the road. So with that, looks like, Sam, you got the microphone.
First of all, going off of the Meg injury, how valuable has Grace Balancey been? Where I think when she got here, you didn't know how much she was going to play, and she's actually ended up playing quite a bit for a grad transfer.
Yeah, well, she was very valuable yesterday, just keeping her head above water for most of the match. Again, she came in at, as I said, about 2/3 of the way through the first set, and I thought gave us a great match. I still think now that, look at, that may be who we're going to be using the rest of the season. Now all of a sudden you realize there's some things she needs to get a little bit better at right now. I thought that as well as she played, her outside sets can get better. I think getting her feet to the ball and setting more balls instead of bump setting more balls is going to be important. But to have that kind of a setter with her savvy and craftiness, she scored some points for us in the front row, which is pretty good for a player that's smallish in Big Ten terms. But no, it's been a delight to have her. And more, Sam, in just what she's given to this team in practice and selflessness throughout the entire year. She's been a great teammate.
I know you said you think you're in the NCAA tournament. The RPI would certainly indicate that you are, but how important are these last two matches, whether you win or not, to play well and build some momentum going into next week?
Yeah, it's exactly what I was talking about. I think our team has had a steady improvement all season, and what people get confused sometimes is they look at your wins and losses, but they don't look at how many top 15 teams you're playing during that stretch. And the first half of the Big Ten season was easier than the second half in terms of who you were playing. So we went through, and I don't know what we were in the first half, 7-3 maybe. I can't really recall what our record was in the first half. But the last 10 matches, we've played Nebraska twice. We played Ohio State. We've played Minnesota. We've played Penn State. And we've played, I think, 6 teams ranked in the top 15 during that stretch. So it hasn't been easy, but I think that we've competed really pretty well almost every night. And we're getting better, and this team is hanging together. The attitudes are great. The effort's great. They love each other, and they care about each other. So I think that we're still in a pretty good spot. But we have to make some strides this week, like you mentioned.
I think when you talk about where it got more difficult, it started with that Maryland match here, and I guess is this 2-match swing kind of a way to see where you've improved since the last time you played Maryland and Penn State?
Yes, it's also a way to see how much they've improved. And, we're not the only team that's trying to get better, and Penn State is a team that may have improved as much this year as anybody. Penn State was kind of an unknown quantity. They've got 4 grad transfers in their starting lineup. And so nobody really knew how good they might be in the Big Ten or how well that would mesh, when you bring that many new players. I think I've got that right. Their big left side's a grad transfer at Penn State. Their setter's a grad transfer. Their right side player is a grad transfer. And it seems like there's one other I may be missing in there somewhere. But quality team, and they're getting better. But, like I mentioned earlier, if we just continue to improve, that's all I can ask for. Play as well as we can possibly play with this group. And I think that these are 2 matches that can go either way. I'm sure their coaches look at it the same way, that they can win or lose these matches. Whichever team plays the best has a pretty good opportunity to win.
Last thing, just how impressed are you with, when the girls who departed last year left? I feel like people thought maybe there's not much depth coming back this year, definitely not much experience in terms of playing for Purdue. But you've had injuries and all kinds of things you've had to overcome along the way, and here you are talking about, we think we're in the NCAA tournament, and that's a pretty big I guess staple for this team based on what's happened to you and how people have risen to the occasions.
Could we hire you as our PR man, Sam? It'd be really nice. I like.
Pretty good job.
Yeah. My goal before this season started, knowing what our roster looked like, and the lack of experience that we had was to make the NCAA tournament. I felt like if we could make the NCAA tournament, we'd have a lot of people doing a lot of really good things this season, not just on the floor, but off the floor. And the grad transfers have had a big impact on that, their attitudes, their commitment to doing something special. You know, neither one of those grad transfers have ever played in an NCAA tournament before. And now they're going to have that opportunity unless something really, really strange happens, okay? So that's great. Skimmerhorn, Ellis, all of those seniors have stepped up and done a great job of driving the bus, you know, leading this team. And, you know, I think obviously our freshmen have done a great job. Two of them have redshirted, but they've played their tails off every night in practice. Then Eva Hudson has a chance to be, you know, the conference freshman of the year. So she's had a big impact as well. So I think our team has played hard all the time, and they've played with great confidence. Haven't won as many as they would have liked to, but nobody normally does. But yeah, thanks, Sam.
You said earlier that the back half of the schedule's been a lot tougher than the start. What are some of the pros and cons of having that tough schedule just before tournament time and facing all those tough teams?
Well, I don't think it's overall bad. You're being challenged. It's like when we played Nebraska yesterday, that's the kind of competition we'll get if we make it to the second round of the NCAA tournament, going on the road into somebody else's venue that is really talented. So it was a great experience for us. Playing those kind of teams totally expose your weaknesses. Ohio State just drilled us. They were awesome when they came into our place. And it showed some things that we had to get better at, defensively in particular. We still have to get better offensively. I mean, I think our defense is on schedule. And we're getting better. We're making some adjustments there, trying to get our blockers more active in different ways. But offensively, you know, we have to continue to find ways to score points, because when we get beat, it's because we give up some runs of points in specific rotations. We actually gave up runs of points yesterday in our best rotation, mostly because the server just served us really tough, and we didn't respond to that very well. The one thing you have to be careful at is that you don't know how close the committee looks at your last 10 matches. That's something that's in their criteria, your last 10 matches of the season. Well, are they wise enough to look at how many top 15 teams have you played? Or are they just going to look, well, they finished 4-6, and so that's not a very good finish. I hope that they will, you know, digest the whole schedule and look at it, you know, who you're playing, because there's a lot of teams that are going to lose to those teams that we lost to that are awfully good. But on the other hand, I look at Michigan, for example, and I think, as I mentioned earlier, they're a really good team. Their front half of the Big Ten was murder, and I thought it had an impact on them in the second half, that they lost a little bit of confidence. They didn't believe they were as good as maybe they could be, because they lost a lot. They played the same kind of schedule we played in the second half they played in the first half.
And then with Maryland, obviously with the game, when they came in here and swept at home, obviously there's a stick to the game plan, play your role thing, but how much does that emotional aspect play into a game like that with them coming here and having that win?
Yeah, I think different players respond to those things in various ways. It's been a while ago since that happened, and I don't think our team is the kind of team that gets too caught up in all that, and I think that's probably good. I mean, I think every match is new, and we know that there's things that we have to do really, really well and we have to focus on in order to beat them. We'll certainly take some things that happened in that match. I met with our analytics guy this morning to discuss what happened, what transpired in that last match that allowed them to beat us in 3 close matches, or 3 close sets. And so we talked for about half an hour about things that now we need to address in the short amount of time we have. We got to practice today. We'll practice at Maryland tomorrow for about an hour and 10 minutes, and then we're going to play. So there's not a lot of things that you can necessarily do during that point. You've just got to be a really good version of yourself when you step on the floor.
And then with the defense in the Nebraska game, Beckbo seemed to be handling a lot of tough shots. Would you say that the stats didn't necessarily reflect how hard they were working back there and what they were doing?
Yeah, I felt like it was one of our best efforts of the year, especially in the first two sets. We dug a ton of balls and some tough shots. I thought our players who play the right back position, which is our setters and Emily Brown, were as good defensively as they've been all season, and that needs to continue. Our middle backs have been coming in for some extra work, and I thought that they did a really nice job of keeping balls off the floor. Anybody like Nebraska is going to really challenge your libero, but I thought Skimmerhorn was pretty good. Her numbers didn't indicate to me as many digs as I thought that she had, but that really doesn't mean a whole lot. But I thought that she had a really solid match defensively as well. And then Raven Colvin was the biggest force at the net blocking-wise. She went up against a couple of huge middle blockers, and I thought she was the best middle blocker on the floor yesterday, and hitter for that matter.
And then with Annie Drews coming back in town, what did that mean for some of the younger players to be able to see her and talk to her?
Yeah, great question. She spent a lot of time with our team. She came in and was at our practice that day. She talked to our team before practice started, probably spent 35, 40 minutes providing a lot of really good stuff for our team as we head into the NCAA tournament. And she compared going into the Olympics like going into the NCAA tournament, and how you think of things a little bit differently when you're playing friendly matches or things like that the Olympic or the national team does. But when all of a sudden you get into the Olympics, it isn't about you anymore. It's about the team. It's 100% about the team. And even though that's the way it should be during the season, it's not always that way. And that's how we have to look at it right now. You forget about who you are and what your role is. It's what in the world can you possibly do to help this team win, because that's all that matters when you go to the Olympics or if you go to the NCAA tournament. That was just one of the things I thought that resonated with me, and I think with our team. But she is an incredible speaker. Her growth since the time she was here at Purdue, or since the time she arrived at Purdue, is immense in my mind. And she spoke to our team twice now, and it's been a pretty special event for us. And I think that the words that she had and her presence here means a lot to our entire program.
Dave, we typically ask at the beginning of the year which player improved the most over the summer. If I were to ask you who has improved the most since match 1 through this season, is there somebody that comes to mind?
Yeah, Lizzie Carr, who you're not going to see until next, well, this spring, I guess. You'll be able to see her compete. Lizzie Carr is our 6'6" redshirt freshman. She and Brielle Warren are both redshirting this year, and we redshirted them because we just didn't think that they would merit enough playing time to steal a year for, and that we know they've got bright futures and they're really good athletes. And so they both work out as the practice team, as the opponent, and they just play so hard, and they're starting to really get it. So I think both of those two have improved a ton. Lizzie Carr might be playing right now for us had we not redshirted her, and it just doesn't make any sense to strip her of that this late in the season. So those are two that have really, really improved. But without individualizing it too much, Meg Renner's made great progress, okay, for sure. Raven's starting to really pick things up at the right time. In my opinion, she's been really good the last 2 weeks, and I thought that she was kind of fighting some things for a while, and I realize everybody is always impressed with Raven, but I know where she can go and what she's capable of doing, and I think the last couple of weeks she's starting to get there, and I'm sure I'm forgetting plenty of people. I think collectively this team has had a steady improvement because that's their mindset. They come in and they work hard every day. Maddie Chin, who was hurt, I thought Maddie was really good in the early part of the year, even before we started playing anybody. but got hurt against Louisville the second weekend of the season, and that injury really kept her back for a while. But right now, she's had, I think she started the last 4 matches and has had 3 great matches during that time and one pretty good one. So you're really making me think. But that's why you bat cleanup.
I don't know about that. Just lower in the order. Last one. We saw on Friday night, I'm sure Michigan wishes it still had some challenges left in the 4th set. When you look at how you use challenges throughout the match, how much of that is in the back of your mind of, I got to keep a couple of bullets handy in case I need them late?
Yeah, it really just depends on the situation. And I know that, let me try to clarify that. If you're playing somebody, like if you're playing Nebraska, and you're in a tough situation early, and that game is still close, you might burn a challenge where if you're playing and somebody that's not as good as Michigan, you may not use that challenge because you feel like you're going to persevere. You're going to find a way to overcome that. So I think when you use them, and maybe that's how they felt. They were in really close situations. They haven't won a lot, even though they've got a really good team in Big Ten play. And they felt like they needed those. But it's also, what do you challenge? And when you challenge those missed touches that you think are there, number one, it depends on how good are the cameras, how much of a touch was it, and who's going to look at the monitor. All those things matter. And quite honestly, I think they were right on the challenge, but there wasn't enough there to see it. So she loses 2 challenges in the first set maybe, and has nothing left. And then, and I don't necessarily think she would have won some of those challenges later either, for either the same reason or one that she just wasn't right about some of the things that she was looking at. But those are really tough to do, and cameras have a lot to do with it. And the Big Ten has upgraded the cameras just this year, but they're not like you see at the Olympics, where they've got that Hawkeye vision, and it's just incredible, where they can pick up everything. So, but yeah, I think that's really important, and I know that she probably wished that she had those, but I don't discredit her for challenging the ones that she did. No. Okay, thank you very much.